Broadcasting live for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. This is Judges News at 2200 hours. The top stories. The 60th ordinary session of ECOWAS heads of state opens in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, with leaders renewing calls for concerted efforts to address challenges facing the West African sub-region. The school garden on the spotlight, Justice examines the established agrarian tradition, taking students through the basics of gardening. President of the Cameroon Football Federation. And devastating tornadoes rip through south and midwestern states of the U.S. Well, viewers, this and much more coming ahead in the news with me, Aminata E. Sanyang. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here. We begin with the presidency and 60th ordinary session of the Authority of Heads of State of ECOWAS, which opens in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, with leaders renewing calls for concerted efforts to address challenges facing the West African sub-region. The outbreak of the new COVID variant, terrorism, climate change and democracy. The conduct of a free, fair and credible election in the Gambia has been hailed as one of the major achievements of democracy in a region that has witnessed 2 military coups in this year.
Leaders from the economic community discuss issues affecting the sub-region. This year's summit is dominated by insecurity, the pervading COVID situation, the effects of climate change and threats to democracy in the sub-region. Opening the session, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrou, called on the leaders to present a united front to confront the challenges facing the sub-region. He singled out the outbreak of the new COVID variant as one of the single biggest threats confronting member states, recalling the devastating impact of the pandemic on the economies of member states. He, however, urged leaders to act on the proposed reforms submitted by the Council of Ministers to make the organization more robust and effective. The president of Ghana and current chair of ECOWAS, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, described the last 12 months as challenging for West Africa, but called for regional cooperation to address the challenges posed by terrorist groups that have been wreaking havoc in the Sahel region.
We continue to defend the security problems in the form of deadly terrorist and kidnapping attacks, particularly in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria, causing numerous casualties among civilians and security forces, resulting in a significant number of displaced persons. Recent events in Burkina Faso are matters of the greatest concern. Increased coordination, however, on the part of coastal nations recently led to an improved maritime security situation in the Gulf.
The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, recorded these comments commending President Akufo-Addo for successfully steering the affairs of the organization. As one of the frontline states in the fight against terrorism, the Nigerian leader underscored what he called the resolute commitment of ECOWAS to foster regional integration by working to create a borderless sub-region.
As a people, we aspire to create a borderless, peaceful, prosperous, and where people have the capacity to access and harness its resources through the creation of opportunities for sustainable development, job creation, and environmental preservation.
The special representative of the UN Secretary General and head of UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohamed Saleh Anadif, believes the fight against terror through its specialized agencies will support ECOWAS in addressing the challenges. The strides made in advancing democracy. The presidential election in the Gambia has been hailed as free, fair, and credible, and this, the leaders believe, is a positive sign for democracy in West Africa. Mamadou Diallo, Reporting from Abuja, Federal Republic of Nigeria, for GRTS News.
Well, our Mamadou Diallo there. Meanwhile, ECOWAS leaders have congratulated President Adama Barrow on his election for a second term, commending him and the Gambian people for the peaceful, free and fair conduct of the election. Yero Diallo has more.
The sub-regional leaders made remarks on Sunday during the opening ceremony of the 68th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government Summit in Abuja, Nigeria. His Excellency Jean-Claude Cassibro, President of the ECOWAS Commission, hailed the growth of democracy in the Gambia for the successful and orderly conduct of the elections. He cited the Gambia as a model for orderly and peaceful conduct of elections. Nigerian President and Summit host His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari and His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana and Chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, also congratulated President Barrow and the Gambian people for the credible elections. Also speaking at the ceremony, His Excellency Mohamed Saleh Anadif, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, hailed the large voter participation and voting method as a model for democracy and peace in the sub-region. Yero Diallo, GRTS News.
Now, GRTS has been examining efforts earmarked to revive school gardening across the country. Our ICE educator has been visiting schools in the greater Banjul area to assess their involvement in gardening amid a major scheme to revive the teaching of agronomy in schools, moving to restore their feeding program.
Environmental concerns broaden alongside diet-related health and nutrition issues. Governments and international development partners have become increasingly interested in school gardens as a site to fortify food and teach children the basics of healthy dieting through agronomy. These have traditionally been used for science education, agricultural training, or generating school income. Given the urgent need for increased food security, environmental protection, more secure livelihoods, and better nutrition today, perceptions of the potential of school gardens are changing.
Many schools have embarked on school gardening, but many schools have faced constraints in developing their gardens. It varies from one region to another and from one school to another. So particularly this region, their main constraints have been space. But the ministry have realized that space is not a barrier. So gardening can be set up without space. You can use the corridor as a garden. You can use tools like wheel tires. The size doesn't matter. What matters is the initiative and the idea to able to teach the kids about what it is meant for.
Some rules, particularly gaining prominence, include the promotion of good diet, development of livelihood skills, and environmental awareness. It's obvious that children are still facing hunger, and this could be easily solved by more investment in school gardens. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is moving to establish and enhance farms and garden projects across schools in the Gambia. But how much has this assisted the food needs of school children?
It's all about commitment, and you have to tell students how important gardening is. You know, since the time when this test of practice come, many schools abandon gardening. But I feel like, you know, the real life situation makes you to have that better understanding of agriculture than the test of practicals. So I said, look, I think it's a matter of orienting the students to know that it's not about, you know, doing the work, but also knowing the purpose of being here and having gardening, and then have all the issues or the crops around them will make it easy for them and even to the teachers as well.
Unprecedented success is being registered in Kanifing East Upper Basic School in the Greater Banyu area, which appears to be at the peak, making headways in this drive. The belief is that school gardens can become the foundation for the nation's health and food security, an idea increasingly backed up by experience and research. Questions are, how much can current efforts deliver?
Normally what we have, we put it together, and then, you know, whenever we have certain extracurricular activities or we need to add tools or whatever, if we have something for SIG, we'll take part of it and then add it there, because sometimes the vote allocated, you cannot get, it cannot cater for what you need. But at most cases, we'll use it and then complement the vote given from the SIG.
Aside from the long sticks of cassava planted, lettuce, tomato, carrot and cabbage can all be seen in attractive beds cultivated by school children.
Apart from the grade 12 and the upper basic, the other grades are all involved in gardening. Normally, with regards to the spacing, we divide the garden among the various classes that we have. Maybe a class can be allocated about 4 beds, and the responsibility of taking care of the beds is given to them. Yes, so they share the responsibility when it comes to weeding, they weed, sowing, planting, and all other activities. And we also try to ensure that all these things are done at the right time.
A well-organized garden whose impact is numerous. Besides the food and revenue generated, pupils here also enjoy a beautiful compound with nature in great bloom.
It's paying dividend in both sides. Being quality or whatever, we are definitely growing. And in the next 1 year, because there is a project proposal we made, and then we are unable to implement it this year. But next year, we want to make here an agricultural research center. An agricultural research center in the school here, where all schools will come and then conduct their research in the school. Because we are coming with a proposal of 4 different types of gardening. Horticultural gardening, medicinal plant gardening, flower gardening, and grass.
The sight of students on campus taking turns to water the garden strongly credits the impact of this venture, which is also nurturing these children to take care of their environment after school. For GRTS News, this is Aissatou Keita.
We now head to the Lower River region, where regional stakeholders in disaster management have begun a 5-day-long contingency planning meeting, reviewing the region's disaster contingency plans. The forum was organized in collaboration with the United Nations Development Program. Alajimbai reports.
The Lower River Region Contingency Plan is a management tool developed to enhance humanitarian action. In a bid to review the document, 25 stakeholders, mainly from government institutions, NGOs, civil society organizations, and community leaders, are attending to have their inputs in the document for effective management, acknowledge the importance of revision amidst the impact of climate change.
When we planned, time will come it will be no more useful, especially looking at the climate change. And of course, I think the enders, they are all around us. So having them to take the lead to make sure that they have a document that is going to be smart enough to respond to our challenge. If you cannot compare things as to what has actually happened to the past, you'll not be able to design for anything that will be meaningful for the future.
The Deputy Executive Director of the National Disaster Management Agency, Serigne Modou Diouf, described the plan as a regional blueprint for disaster capacity for adequate and effective response during emergencies.
The plan serves as the region's blueprint for preparing for and responding to disasters. The plan, if well articulated, which I suppose that's why we are all here, we expect that the efforts we are going to put together would help the region to respond amicably with the right capacity and to promote overall coordination for the implementation of the plan. In 2014, LRR identified hazards such as bush and domestic fires, floods and windstorm, and disease outbreak. The present contingency plan outlines the history of disasters within the region and the projected likelihood trend.
The tool is also expected to incorporate resource mobilization and communication strategies to enhance regional disaster preparedness and response, particularly on hazards such as bush and domestic fires, as well as floods and disease outbreaks. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
To the Central River region, where Action Aid Gambia has rolled out its final cash transfer support initiative for over 50 families affected by the July 7th windstorms. Details in this report by Mudlamin Sane.
For 3 months, Action Aid Gambia has been providing unconditional cash support to disaster victims in the Central River Region South in a constant relief effort, greatly benefiting rural households recovering from disaster and nutritional insecurity. This is the final disbursement of cash support for 58 households affected by the July 7th windstorm that left numerous families across the country without food and shelter. Beneficiaries of the intervention facilitated by the National Disaster Management Agency are mainly drawn from Mahmoud Fana and Jisadi communities, which face the worst of this year's devastating windstorm.
The number of the affected households is too much, and NDMA cannot do it all. As I said, they need to work with partners. Action is supporting a number of 56 families will really help the NDMA to make sure to meet the targets. What intend to do, not only Action Aid, but even the Gambia Red Cross equally supported some families. The government, like the NDMA, equally supported some families in terms of shelter and food.
Action intervention engaging communal participation.
We will never relent on providing or trying to build the resilience of communities. Of course, we know like giving cash may not be sustainable. What we are focusing, at least for now, or what we will try to look at is to how to prevent such disasters and to work with communities so that even when there are strong winds, the destruction may not be that high, or even there are floods, the impact could be reduced. So in as much as we will come up with such emergencies, but they will pay more attention as how to prevent or avert these situations.
This cash support is of great importance to these beneficiaries receiving much needed assistance to fully recover. Each of these family heads pocketed 2,700 for 3 months from Action Aid, the Gambia, and its partners in a support scheme aimed to reducing climate change vulnerability in rural communities. Modu Lamin Sane reporting for GRTS News from the Central River Region.
We will take our first break. When we return, we look at sports news. Welcome back, and now in sports, First Division League, as they defeated Banjul United 2-0 in all Banjul affairs to keep their unbeaten run intact after 3 games. Famarabaji witnessed the late night kickoff at the Independence Stadium, and he filed in this report.
Waba something similar special this time around too, collecting 7 points out of a possible 9 in these initial stages of the league. Prove great potential in possessing the ball, and the two teams never disappoint as they live up to their billing with some exciting displays throughout the night. Wabanjul first came close to opening the scoring, but Pa Asan Diouf was denied from close range by the goalkeeper. And in the other end, Banjul United responded with Musa Jaju forcing Pa Ibu Dampa into a save. But 2 minutes from the break, Wabanjul deservedly crafted the opener after a beautiful build-up that saw Pa Asan Diouf scored an incredible goal from outside the box. From the break, Banjul United goalkeeper in what was going to be a Nicola Momo Saliu Jallo forced. But there was still time for Wabanjul to score a legitimate goal. Asibu Kamara received a already looking desperate, but Wabanjul. In the other week 3 encounters, newcomers Falcon defeated Sambra 1-0. Gambia Armed Forces lost 1-0 to Steve Biko, and the defending champions Fortune snagged their first win with a narrow 1-0 win over Marino. From Arabaji, GRTS News.
Well, interesting battle between Banjulians. Now, still in the world of sports, former Cameroonian international Samuel Eto'o has been elected president of the Cameroon Football Federation with 43 votes ahead of the incumbent president, who received 31 votes. The former Barcelona by several actors of Cameroonian soccer and cancelled in mid-January by the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The 40-year-old former striker had announced his intention to run for the post on September 22nd, saying it was time to launch the reconstruction had failed miserably. Cameroon will host the African Cup of Nations from January 9 to February 7, 2022. Well, we will take our second break. When we return, we look at news beyond our borders. Welcome back. At least 30 devastating tornadoes slammed their way through half a dozen states. The vast majority of deaths were in Kentucky. CGT and Dan Williams has more.
As far as the eye can see, there's just block after block of complete devastation, complete destruction, buildings completely leveled, blocks of rubble just completely lining the streets here. Now, it has to be said, the full scale of the damage, well, that's the governor, and it continue here throughout the night, even though the temperatures are continuing to fall here. This is what the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, said a little earlier.
Beginning late last night and through the very moment that we are standing here, we have lived through some of the toughest hours of our lives as Kentuckians. This event is the worst, most devastating, most deadly tornado event in Kentucky's history.
Well, in all, we know that around 30 tornadoes, we think, Illinois, which also saw 6 people killed there. But this town, this city of Mayfield, this is really, as you say, the epicenter of the destruction. President Biden saying that they will do everything it can in order to assist. Resources now can be released. Now, as far as the emergency agency FEMA, well, they are expected to be on the scene later on Sunday. And you have to remember that here the fire station was damaged, the police station was damaged, so they will be very much supplying much needed equipment as this search and rescue process continues. And of course, then begins that rebuilding process as well, which is going to, it's already, as I say, getting cold here, and as we approach winter, there's going to be further challenges ahead as this community grapples once again to understand exactly what happened here on Friday evening.
Well, an unfortunate incident there. Well, this is GRTS News at 2200 hours with me, Aminata Isanyang, a recap of our top stories before we take leave of you. The 68th ordinary session of ECOWAS heads of state has opened in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, with leaders renewing calls for concerted spotlight. GRTS looked at the established agrarian tradition, taking students through the basics of gardening to promote agriculture. In sports, former Cameroonian international Samuel Eto'o has been elected president of the Cameroon Football Federation. 80 people amid